have anything for them to respond to. Yeah. So, go ahead and show the slide, because I didn't put this prompt in. I just put that prompt in. So they'll see it. I'll see that in open space for them to put in some ideas. If they don't get them, yell at them.
I can wait a few seconds for them to do that.
Yeah, it takes and I will tell them at the beginning of the presentation that they should be ready, because we're going to do some interactive stuff.
You told us to do.
Yes, I know I did.
Didn't know people not following the directions?
So I apologize for.
You knew why that was. It was something that looked like you were just a little bit of a code. Oh, then there's Dana and Elijah.
Yeah, somebody phone. So when you do this picture, you don't have to show this question. You just have to I'll flip to my screen and you can skip past it on your screen. Never mind. But it'll work. It'll be fine.
Well, I see it on that screen.
Because that screen's always going to show it.
The one that's going to show we're talking about.
No, whatever you show is going to be here. And this is going to show questions during the presentation, even when you're not. Even your presentation. The presentation will be here. Anything on the big screen will be there. While you're, and this will show the questions that are coming in. I would. What we do with everybody else is at the end of the presentation, I read the question and you answer it. It makes it different with yours. If you say, here's the question, here's my answer. So I try to phrase the question. Count up to 30. I know 24 hours. We're supposed to do 20 minutes.
We're planning for 20 minutes talking and 10 minutes answering questions.
Yeah. If you didn't get time for questions, you have an electronic answer. Welcome back. Mickey's hand is on the 3. So it's time to get started. If you don't, I'll repeat it again, if you don't have an iPad or a laptop that's connected, you're missing out, especially on this presentation, because we're going to do some interactive things and ask you some questions, and we'd like to get as many responders as possible. There's a dozen or so laptops over there. Just go up and grab one. Don't take it home, but you can grab one for now. Those are all logged in, ready to go. I'll give you a couple seconds to do that. Because as we did before, we're going to do the Q&A using this process. We'll also have a couple of questions they're going to ask in the middle of the thing to sort of get your thoughts on some various things. So, without further ado, got your laptops? There's still plenty of them over there. Grab one. The more the merrier. We're going to talk about lean transformation. Let me introduce Dana Boritz and Elijah Ditter. Ditter or Dieter? Ditter.
Ditter.
Ditter. Okay. Just like it says right there. And take it away. I'll switch it to your presentation.
You think you'll switch it to my presentation? There you go. Hello, everyone. I'm Dana Boritz. I'm one of the lean ambassadors in CCSQ here at CMS. And one of the things, oh,
Hang on. Can you hear her?
wow. Folks that really know me know it's hard to not hear me, so I will talk even louder. So I'm going to hug this thing. So, hi, I'm Dana Boritz. I'm one of the CCSQ lean ambassadors here at CMS. And a lot of folks that see me and know me already, I'm talking about lean in many different aspects in our work. But today, I was asked to talk about the lean transformation in CCSQ. So basically, these terms that you're seeing here, they're all types of process improvement, and we're doing these in different parts of our work. But they all run off the same simple principles, and with lean, we are actually looking at the people that do the work on the front line and how they can improve the work instead of being told how to do the work or improve it from our management. So that's a big difference that we have going on in CCSQ.
You might want to get a little bit closer to that mic.
Oh my goodness. Okay, can you hear me better now?
A little bit.
Okay, so what is lean? Lean basically creates a culture of continuous improvement for making small incremental changes in our work. And it is basically a method we're using for problem solving, but we are standardizing how we're doing things. So it's not something that's going to be looking at things that are in other areas of control. It's focusing on what's in our control. So a lot of times when we're doing different areas of work in our projects daily, we say, oh, well, this group is causing this problem and this group might be causing this problem. We actually look at what we're doing ourselves in our work to see where we can make improvements there. And we've found that this can be used in any situation at any time. People that have even learned lean are doing it in even home environments on things. So it's helping us to reduce our waste in the government. And we do know that we have quite a bit of waste in the government as it is. So where did it come from? Now, this was initially coined lean by some professors at MIT, and it was embraced quickly by Toyota and other manufacturing areas. Because one of the main things with lean is it's empowering the workforce that's at the front end to be able to make changes and also stop things when there's a problem. So we all know as IT folks that when you have a defect come out on a system, if you wait until the system is out and then you have defects, you try to fix it, that's really expensive. So what Toyota saw that defect, they were able to correct it then, rather than the car going out, having recalls done, and those types of things. So we're using that in our development, where we're catching those problems early and we're correcting them before there's any downstream impacts, and it's much more cost effective. So now it's been spread to healthcare facilities. There are hospitals all over the areas that are doing things. You might hear them talk about Gemba walks and other areas where to try and make improvements that are benefiting the customer, which is our beneficiaries, and that's what we're about here as well. So for the lean culture change, that is something that can take years to actually change. So we've been working on this, trying to make the changes in CCSQ, and we've now spread them over to CMMI. But basically what's helping us on this is that we have management commitment, and that is strong. We have commitment all the way up to Dr. Patrick Conway. And it did help that he was with CCSQ and over CMMI, but he recognizes the work that we've been doing on this, and that's empowering to our employees and staff, and it's great for morale. It's also in the steps that we go through, we are seeing the horrors of the work we're doing, so we talk about being excited for the horrors of the work that we have because we know we can improve on those. So with this iceberg, you're showed here about the improvements that are happening a lot in our work, that 5 to 10% improvement. We're fixing those things right when we see them. Sometimes you might call them with the firefighting, but we like to try and look at lean and digging into the improvements at the 30 to 40% level down underneath. So what that's talking about, a type of example is maybe at a doctor's office, the person at the front line that's entering in the codes, maybe entering them in wrong, and you're getting a bill because your insurance company says they don't cover that. Well, we have to go and look at the fact of there's a bigger meaning to that. So it could be something that the person at the frontline staff, they're not trained to know exactly what they're doing, so this problem keeps happening. What can we do on that back end to correct that problem? Also, how can we standardize it to make sure that it's being done the same way across the staff? That's the kind of things we're looking at for those deeper improvements as we work through our lean methodology. So part of the way we're doing this is through the road to standardization. So these bullseyes here are sort of just depicting how we are. Our current state, where you see the dots all over the bullseye, an example of that could be we have cores all over at CMS. And they have a core training that we go through, but everyone sort of does a little bit different as they're doing their work. And sometimes folks are doing things the way they were trained by folks that left here, because that's how it was always done. So Lean is getting you to question the way things were always done. And then we have events, and I'm going to talk a little more about those, but we try to bring everybody together to a better future state, which is the second where you see that everyone is together there on those bullets. But we work towards moving to an ideal state where we can all make these improvements together, and we can also, as we do a process in a specific area, if it's something that benefits another area at CMS, we want to try and copy that standard so that we're sharing that knowledge across CMS. So it's all about continuous improvement on this. And honestly, we do value following the standards more than going our own way. It's sort of hard for folks to not lean back in that tendency, but when you are following the standards, or if you find a better way that something might be working, we look at things to improve on it for all of us to benefit from it. So one of the ways that we are looking through eliminating things is through waste. We have waste in a lot of the processes that are here right now. Some of the waste we talk about are defects, variation, transportation, overproduction, inventory, overprocessing, waiting, and motion. Now, because we're CMS, we had to come up with an acronym for this, so we came up with timwood.v, well, plus V. Couldn't figure out how to fit the V in there, so that's our acronym. We had to come up with this. But all of this with the waste, when we're looking at each step of how we're doing things in our process, is we keep in mind, is this adding value for the customer, for the particular customer that we have? Is it the beneficiaries, the customer? Is it another component? I work in ISG, and there's several groups that we have that we are supporting. They're our customers as well. So we want to make sure when we're adding these extra steps in our work, is it benefiting that customer in the end? So I was told I was one of the few people that followed the directions about the questions for think tanks, so I do have some questions here. Right now, some of the biggest benefits we have are with improving our standardization with our work. It's helping us, improving employee morale and our time savings. But what are some other things that you feel could happen from standardizing and using lean methodology in your work?
So with a group this size, an average number of new ideas we should get should be in the range of about 25 for the group this size. So start generating some ideas. What are some of the other benefits? You don't want to be below average. So enter them in the bottom there. What are some, what are some of the other benefits? We'll give you a few minutes to do that. So far, this group is way under average. We should get about 25. You're at about a D minus.
I did put 3 in the statement, so maybe I hurt them by doing that.
Hey, you helped them, that's fine. We're almost there, I think. 5 more. Some duplicates will happen, I know. You made it.
Good job, guys. Now you can hear me talk again.
Do you want to review any of those, or we're collecting them for posterity?
I wasn't planning to review
It's your
this,
call.
but I can. So I think you see all the ideas up on the screen. I don't know if you need me to read to the screen, but it's got a common theme of what I'm reading on here. So it's definitely about improving our training and improving our traceability, which I know is important for us in the IT world to be able to trace things back from our requirements. But as you can see, there are definitely benefits to what we're doing on here. doesn't come back on.
It's coming.
Whoops. Okay. So right here on the screen now, I'm showing about the lean process standardization tools that we are using in CMS. And the reason why I'm saying is CMS, not just CCSQ right now, is we've already started to spread this methodology. So three of the things that we use, we talk about doing rapid improvements. Those are things that we refer to as just do it's. It's things that can be done within a week. Sometimes it could be just done by one person, and we just go ahead and we work on those things. The next thing is our FedBiz Leans, which is used in an organization in one area and specifically looking at one role, usually a handful of folks that are working on that. And then the work of a Kaizen, and that is a bigger group of folks, so I'm going to talk in a little more detail about that. So like I said, with our rapid improvements, those are quick things that we see. And this is part of having rapid improvements like this with our changes in there is part of the problem-solving culture that we've already created in CCSQ. And this is something we're trying to expand on more in the future, and Elijah will talk more about that. So our FedBiz Leans are actually events that we have. It could be a small event. Sometimes we do them at our training classes when we have several ideas we need to improve on, and we get a group together that are new employees, and we want to educate them on what we're trying to do for our improvements. So again, this is like a handful of folks looking at something with one connection on where they can make the changes at. And these are also things that are in our control of what we can invoke change on to make better improvements in our work. So the largest of the events that we do, and this typically takes the largest amount of time, this can take up to 12 months to really see the results on, is a Kaizen. Now, we try to encourage doing more work through FedBiz Leans because they can be done in a couple of weeks, and the returns can be seen much quicker. But Kaizens have proved very powerful for CCSQ. We've looked at our projects that we have, and we've worked with our contractors across even our lines of business to really streamline our efforts. The reason why this has been so beneficial for us is we've also been able to copy standards on our different projects of things, and we're able to share that knowledge with each other. So the transparency that's come out of this with just some of our lean work has been amazing to CCSQ. So right now, we've been doing this for about 2 years, and it's staying with us because of certain things, like we talked about the strong management commitment on all levels, and the fact that we're standardizing our tools. So these tools are there not even just for us as we're working right now, but as new employees are coming in, we're able to share that information with them so they aren't lost when they come in here. We all remember back when we were a new employee, we came in here, we're in this room probably for 3 days, had things thrown at us about everything, and then you go back to your desk and you have to wait for your laptop, you have to wait for access to certain things. Some of these steps being documented in advance and helping them of what's coming is just helping us to get prepared to be a better employee here at CMS. So these things have been helping. We've been doing these types of things, the scrums, the staff meetings, and it's working for us. So we decided in CCSQ we needed to figure out the next step to go to. If you really think of our lean tools that we have right now, the rapid improvement, the FedBiz Lean, and the Kaizens, they're really like product event things that we're doing, and it's been project-based improvement. So we needed to go to the next step of getting something with management behind that. So we have engaged with a lean management operating system that we're trying to get further to our true north of where we want to be. So I'm going to let Elijah talk on our lean management operating system that we are working on for our processes for lean.
Thanks, Dana, and thanks to everyone for coming. Again, my name is Elijah Ditter. I work in CCSQ and CMMI, which is the Innovation Center. So you just heard Dana talk a little bit about what is lean, removing waste out of processes, making them better. She talked a little bit about the benefits of doing this. She went into our tools a little bit, how we're using this. So then the question is, we've gotten some good results. At the back of the slide deck, we really encourage you to check out those results through Think Tank or wherever that presentation is. So then what's the next step? Why are we doing this next step, this operating system? And the reason for that is we've been doing what Dana described as event-based lean, which is good, right? You have tools and you run events and you get improvements. However, what we've been finding is that you're essentially taking tools and you're putting them on top of an old structure, right? So if you think of the analogy of a computer, so you have your tools, your Excel and your PowerPoint and your Word, and then you have your operating system. So we had these souped up tools with excellent people behind the tools, however, we were running it on MS-DOS. Right? So we need to upgrade our system and run it on Windows 8 to be able to maximize our tools. So through research and speaking with leadership, the CCSQ leaders want to take that next step and emerge into this operating system and this management structure. And this is how we're going to create that full structure to deliver on our strategy deployment, to encourage our all employees to be daily problem solvers. We're going to continue to use our lean tools, those things that Dana just talked about. Those aren't going away. That's still how we dig deep into processes to remove waste in the true lean fashion. But we're adding on top that whole management system, that structure of how we're going to go about doing it through things such as coaching, leader standard work, visual management, and also data-driven strategic alignment. So introducing things such as scorecards and other tools that I will briefly run through here today. So this first slide is a coaching slide that we acquired from John Shook, the Lean Enterprise Institute. So we wanted to kick it out. We have a question on the think tank on what you see when you look at this slide. So you see the type up there on the top, develop your people and get the job done, and accomplish those at the same time. So coaching is a key fundamental of this entire management system, right? We had the tools, and now we're switching to this operating system, and coaching undergirds it all. So we want to kick it out. When you look at this slide from the sense of coaching, what do you see?
So the picture's up there. I'm going to leave the picture there for a minute. You should have in your think tank the ideas you see. Again, we're looking for about 25 things that you see from this picture. Proceed. And I'll switch to the picture in a second.
And as they come in, I'll pull them out and kind of throw out the ideas for the folks in the room. So top-down support. So I think someone's looking at that leader up there on the top of the hill. Now you see that he's looking down his people and he's pulling them up. He's helping them come along. People sweating. So those workers down there, they're really working hard. But you have the leader up top there with the rope pulling them up. So teamwork, they're working together, they're pulling and they're helping each other. How about the mountain? Does the mountain ever end? If we pull up the image back up.
Just takes a second.
Well, I'll give you a hint. The mountain doesn't end. The mountain keeps going because improvement never stops, right? So there's no tip of the mountain to where we get there, we get to the summit of the mountain, and hey, we conquered lean. Lean is done. Let's move on to the next thing. Dana talked about how it was a culture of continuous improvement. So this slide is aimed at looking at that. So our managers in CCSQ have been undergoing these trainings, and the first one that they do is around coaching, which is taking a step back from being so directing and trying to use more open-ended coaching questions to really encourage staff to own their issue. And it's tough because it's busy around here and there's a lot of work going on. But it's a real fundamental to, as Dana talked about, really empowering employees to solve the issues.
Someone asked if there's a cliff.
There's a cliff? I hope not. But the mountain keeps going, so you never know, right? So you have to keep climbing to figure it out.
The tools, did you see the tool? I don't know if you're looking at the list. The workers, somebody said, number 14, workers have backpacks, presumably with tools. That was the one that...
Yeah, and it looks like the leader has a little extra something in their backpack, right? They have that little pickaxe up there.
Someone noted that you need a woman in the lead.
Okay, so this is a graphic on the training that CCSQ leadership has undertaken. You see that first bullet is that coaching class. So they did that back in March, and they're going through this module program, which is taught by ThedaCare. ThedaCare is a health system based in Wisconsin. They're renowned for their lean transformation and the quality that has come with their lean transformation. So the final module, Module 4, is in October. So this is about a 6 to 8 month journey that CCSQ, a lot of CCSQ management is undertaking to learn these modules. So what happens is we go to ThedaCare, or ThedaCare comes to us, and we learn these different components, right? And then we bring them back to our government workspace, and then we start to translate them. Because we're learning this from an acute care hospital, and we're a little different here in government. So we're really innovating on these tools to see how do they fit for us. And doing those testing cycles is currently what we're doing. But the goal is to build a coherent system that we can then be able to spread across CMS. So quickly, some of the tools that we're looking at, we first have a lean work zone. So this is a concept that learned at a hospital, it makes a lot of sense. You go to the workspace, because that's where the patient is, right? So if you're a manager and a leader, go set out an hour to go and see where the work's happening, be with the patient. So we're testing this out in CCSQ, piloting at time, but we have challenges here because we have alternative work schedules and alternative duty stations and things of that nature. But the concept is that we're having some protected time to make sure we're focusing on our operating system, that bedrock that we are using. Status sheets, so this is similar to a one-on-one, just puts a little structure around it, where it has some standard questions, these coaching questions, those open-ended coaching questions to set up the manager for success as they're engaging with their employee. And the goal of these is to really develop staff and let them have ownership over their issue. Because as a manager, the more you can encourage and train, teach your folks to really own the issues themselves, the better and more you're going to be able to accomplish as a manager. We're doing scorecards, balanced scorecards. So if you're familiar with that concept, it's the same thing. The difference is we're trying to align it into a system to where you have these true north metrics, these high pillars, and how everything is going into that. And once again, we're testing on these scorecards to see how they work. We're trying to get down to that base data element, right? So we're asking, what do you produce, and how do you know you're doing a good job? And those can be challenging questions, because oftentimes what we produce here at CMS is, well, we manage contractors, or we do something else that isn't quite traceable on a run chart, like such as in a hospital you're trying to reduce patient falls. So we're trying to translate these concepts to see how it can work here. But the idea is that we're able to report on performance and then be able to understand the data on how we're performing in our own little area to be able to improve. Team huddles, so you're familiar with the huddling concept. The difference here is that we have an area improvement center that we want to huddle around. And the huddles, scrums, standing meetings, whatever you want to call them, similar concepts. We're engaging. It's constantly teaching. It's setting the manager up for another area to do their coaching. It's commitments before peers, and we really aim at keeping it 15 minutes or less. Because we want to make this improvement work, we don't want it to overwhelm, right? We're trying to do two things. We have the improvement work coming in, so we want to transform the culture to where it's seen as not just an extra thing that you have to do, but really a part of the work. So if you're in a status sheet meeting and a fire drill came up, the first coaching question would be to your staff, what are you doing to address this fire drill, right? Because that's important to resolve this. The next question is, what are you doing to prevent that from happening again? Or what about our systems allowed this issue to happen, this fire drill to happen? That's what feeds this improvement ideas that you then would huddle around. And then lastly, I talked a little bit about it already, the Area Improvement Center. It's what ties these different tools together. So for example, starting with the status sheets, the information gained there flows into this Area Improvement Center. That's where you triage the ideas. The scorecard lives on this Area Improvement Center. It kind of becomes the hub of this operating system that we're attempting to create. So we're looking forward to the future. As I said, we're still in the midst of going through this training. We've had success with the tools. And the next step is this management system. We're testing it here. We're really codifying it. And we're looking to spread. CMMI is next on deck looking to take it on. And we're really interested in your questions through the think tank. And we really appreciate the opportunity to speak.
There are three questions in here. So do folks get a certificate?
So I was trying to answer some of these as Elijah was speaking, sorry.
Easier to do with a real keyboard, isn't it?
Yes, thank you. Okay, so the first one is talking about, do they get a certification through ThedaCare? So right now, CCSQ is going through the training program that Elijah was showing on the one slide with our modules. Now, that's a healthcare facility, so we are the government and things work a little differently here. So we are going through a process where we're learning their standards and then we're testing and piloting them through our areas on how things work at CMS. The first cohort was going through with CCSQ, and now we've expanded to CMMI. So there isn't a certification right now that is open for folks for ThedaCare. The next question was...
Where does DevOps fit into this?
Okay, can someone tell me a little more about what DevOps is? Because are we just talking about development operations?
That's what I'm assuming.
Okay, so...
Does anybody help out there? These are anonymous.
I was going to say, whoever answered that question, actually, if you could contact me afterwards, I could probably help you a little better with that, on where that fits into those steps.
Will this be adopted across the entire agency?
It is our hope that it is adopted across the entire agency, and I think that with the help of Dr. Patrick Conway, we have been trying to spread that. We've had groups from several different areas engage in us, with us working on things to improve work on our Kaizens. In fact, when I had an ISG testing Kaizen, I was grateful to have George able to come and speak to us on some of the things that he faced with Marketplace. So that was good to hear from different areas the challenges that are being faced that ISG has also experienced.
Will CMS incorporate this into the work they do with the contractor community to improve delivery on contracts and task orders?
I hope so eventually, and you'll see me and Elijah sometimes excited about the work that we're doing, and we do hope that this does spread and making improvements on things. Our contracting process that I've heard from several folks is very cumbersome, and that would be a great project if we could move to that. I do think that would probably be something like a Kaizen, since it would have to spread over many different areas.
How do you manage organizational resistance?
So we've had some resistance as we do things because people see it as another flavor of the month on how things are being done with the work. So we do try and show our value of what's being done in our work and our results. At the end of the slide deck, I didn't want to spend time going through and reading slides to you guys. We've had some great results on the projects we've done. It's been cost savings for us at the agency-wide. It's been beneficial and increasing morale of the staff and just increasing even our work-life balance. A lot of us don't work 40-hour weeks, so it's nice when we can find improvements that still are getting the work done very effectively and not having to spend all those extra hours.
How do you incent positive behaviors?
We do have a recognition program that is going through in different areas. One of the things that Elijah talked about with the Area Improvement Center is we do have a part where we recognize the work that's being done by folks and reward them. Also, there are groups that as they are getting their results from their Kaizen are speaking with our leadership and getting recognition as well there for their work. And they're also being asked to show those kind of improvements that have been done in different areas. So that's sort of helping with spreading the culture. It's also getting out there the good work that people are doing, and that really does help.
And how do you maintain focus in the long term on Kaizen events?
So when the Kaizen events, once it happens, the events are usually about a week long. And after they happen, we have follow-up meetings. The project champions, which is usually the lean leader, which would be like myself or Elijah or one of the other lean ambassadors that would run the event, we'll follow up with the groups on a monthly basis, and each Kaizen seems to have different work groups for improving things. And since we're working with our contractors on improving work, they are actually engaged with each other across the areas and giving transparency to how they're seeing things done. And they are working with each other each month, and we're following up on our results and then discussing with each team. So we do have, I guess if you want to call them, like with our status sheets, we have our status calls of where we're going with things. And also when we have our roadblocks, we have our senior leadership to help with that, to break through those roadblocks. So when you saw that mountain picture and somebody made a comment about how the man at the top of the thing had another pick at the top, well, that's where I always say our leadership can help us break through those roadblocks so we can get through and make more improvements.
Are some activities not appropriate for lean engagements?
I haven't seen something that's come to me yet that couldn't at least be done some improvement work for either a FedBiz Lean or a rapid improvement, even though a rapid improvement doesn't use any standard templates that we might be using. It's all the same kind of methodology with lean improvements. So I haven't seen anything yet that's been brought to me that we couldn't do lean for.
And what are the differences in implementation between CCSQ and CMMI?
So since we talk about standardization is huge for us, Elijah and I in particular, we don't work for the same people. We don't even work in the same groups anymore. But we try to make sure with us and our other lean ambassadors that we stay standardized on all the tools and how we're doing things. That's what really helps this to stick for us. So we have a training class actually coming up, and we have groups from both CMMI and CCSQ attending there. So we're trying to mirror image what we're doing, even with the training program for our lean management operating system as it's coming up.
And how do you incent contractors, especially with cost plus?
I'm not sure that I know the exact answer on that, if it's talking about incentivizing the contractors. Honestly, there's always more work, so it's not like anybody's losing any work with what the efforts we find. If you get too much time on your hands, CMS always has more things that need to be done. Somebody will find you more work to do.
Okay. Any other questions? Oh, here's one more. What are the most effective lean tools that work at CMS?
So I honestly feel that the FedBiz Lean options that we try to push here with our Lean methodology are the most effective because we can do those in a quicker return and start engaging in those right away. I mean, the Kaizens, they are the bigger object, but they do take 12 months to really make those improvements and to really be seen across the board. But a FedBiz Lean could be something that could be done within a certain division, and the work could be copied to other divisions so those results are obtained quicker.
Great. We better stop before another question comes in.
My goodness.
Thank you very much, you two.
Thank you.
And we'll move to our next presentation. Thank you. Good job. There's the mic.
Okay.
You got it.
Perfect.
To Mike Reinhold and Ella Kosis.
Ilya.
Say it again. Ilya. Ilya. Welcome.
I want to thank everyone for giving Ilya and myself the opportunity to share with you our experiences with Salesforce and hopefully open up some new suggestions and thoughts on how you can leverage it. I would like to say that a few years back, I was at a Gartner conference and they were talking, or their theme was around destructive IT. Didn't quite understand what that meant at the time, but now I do and I understand, and Salesforce is sort of that sort of destructive IT product that forces you to rethink the way you tackle challenges using traditional IT methods. And it's evolving even faster. Am I hitting this clicker right?
My fault. Go. There you go. Oh,
Oop.
that's not the one. There's a circle. Click on the right side of the circle.
There you
There you
go.
go.
So to start, how many of you in the audience have actually heard of Salesforce or are familiar with it? Well, it looks like a pretty good majority. And cloud-based technology or cloud solutions? Okay. So first, you have to understand that there's sort of three different types of cloud-based technologies or solutions. There's software as a service, you'll hear it as SaaS. There's infrastructure as a service, and then there's platform as a service. Salesforce is actually platform as a service. It sort of provides the software, it also provides the infrastructure for you to be able to do what you need to do in your IT development process. But it's not the solution for everything, and that's with any sort of cloud technology. And when you're looking at trying to decide whether to use a cloud technology like Salesforce, you have to ask yourself some questions. Is this going to be faster than the traditional way we do development? Is the time to market quicker? Does it cut process checks and logistics? Is infrastructure faster? Is scalability better? And the other one that's highly important is, will it integrate in with your other systems? So what's the integration factor? That's important to CMS because we invest in enterprise shared services. So if you have a cloud solution that can't integrate with those enterprise shared services, then you have an issue, and you may need to think about that as using it as a technology platform. Now in Salesforce, we are working to integrate the product in with the enterprise shared services at CMS, the enterprise portal, and the enterprise EIDM. And we're working closely to make that happen. So I'm going to turn this over to Ilya Kosis for a while to discuss exactly what we've done with Salesforce, and I'll come back a little later. Besides, he wore a suit today, so.
Yeah,
That's unusual.
I don't usually wear a suit, so this is kind of new for me. No. Anyway, thanks, Mike. Thank you, everyone, for giving us the opportunity to come here today to talk about the really cool stuff that we're doing at the Innovation Center using the Salesforce technology platform. I'd say that the pace of innovation at the Innovation Center is lightning fast, it's fluid, and everybody wants something yesterday. So we're really the first within CMS and HHS to utilize the Salesforce technology platform to build custom applications. We've been using Salesforce, the platform, since 2011, November of 2011. And we've since then truly adopted an agile approach to building these custom applications. And we utilize Salesforce's past offerings to include everything required to develop and deploy an agency IT solution. Everything's there in the cloud: the infrastructure, the development, the coding and software, the network, the security. And with that, we've had to overcome a lot of challenges at the Innovation Center because, like I said, everybody wants something yesterday or 2 weeks ago. So in that regard, you know, the main challenge has been to reduce the investment in the temporary applications. So these programs, these model teams, just want an application that they can use for 60 days or 90 days. So you don't want to spend a gazillion dollars to build an IT solution or a web form, an online application, you know, for a 90-day period of time. And the other thing is the lengthy development cycles. Program teams can't wait, these model teams can't wait 6 to 8 weeks to develop an online application, a web form that can collect structured data. They just can't do it. They need it in 6 weeks. They need it in 8 weeks. They need it in 4 weeks. So that was a challenge that we've had to overcome. And the Salesforce technology platform has allowed us to do that. IT needs, hard to meet with the existing technology, provide quick and easy access to potential stakeholders and users. So a lot of our users are internal CMMI staff members, as well as external folks, non-federal employees. So they basically go to a URL, they log in, and they have access to the information that they need. They don't need to be on the CMS network. But I think the most important challenge that we've overcome is to be quick and nimble with change requests. When we build an online application and a program team comes to us prior to go live and says, we forgot to add this question on the online application, or we forgot to add this field, can we do that? We can do that, and we can do that very quickly within a few hours or a few days, depending on the level of effort. And all these change requests are structured, they're logged in our system, and they're tracked. And they're tracked back to the requirements that initially was part of that online application. So the change request process is very, very nimble, and it's a very quick turnaround time, as opposed to it taking, you know, weeks or months to make a very simple change, which can be very frustrating to the business owners at CMMI and CMS. The bottom line results, I think, is the number one thing that we've overcome is time to market. We've been able to reduce the time it takes from the inception of an idea from a business owner to deploying it into production. It typically takes us 2 weeks to gather requirements, 3 to 4 weeks to develop a system, another week or 2 to conduct IVMV testing, for a total of about 8 weeks on average from inception to go live for an online application. I mean, this is crazy, right? You don't hear about this a lot, but we've been able to do this. And we've been doing this since 2011, so we have a very well-oiled machine in place. We have a great team of BAs, developers, PMs, IVMV folks, and when we go to the table to gather requirements with the business owners, we don't come with a blank sheet of paper and say, tell me what you want. We've done this so many times that when we go to the table, when our BAs go to the table, we come to the table with a list of the top 50 business requirements that program teams want. We need to save time because we need to turn things around quickly. So when we go to the table and we say, well, you want to build an online application, this is what other program teams have done. These are some basic requirements that you need. Is there anything extra that you want? Any sort of customization that's extra? So we save time in that regards. And then we also reuse a lot of what we've built in the past for other program teams. Like the simple example that I'm giving you, we do more than this, but an online application, a form that allows an applicant that wants to participate in a model team to go in, fill it out, and submit it, and then that application is reviewed down the road for acceptance into the program team. We've done tons of these, so we know the basics, we can reuse a lot of things, and we come to the table prepared. And that's what makes us get this sort of 8-week development cycle. And the technology that Salesforce is on, that platform also makes it very easy to reuse components. So how is cloud computing being used today at the Innovation Center? There's a lot of different products that we develop. A lot of them are letters of intent, online applications, review and scoring applications, and project management tools, tools that allow the business to manage their awardees or their stakeholders by tracking their milestones, their contact information, and sort of any other data element that they want to track. We also build Salesforce web-based portals. That's sort of the future now, I think, at the Innovation Center. And these screenshots don't really do it justice, but you know, the screenshot on the top left at the top is a basic web form that we built for the Healthcare Payment Learning and Action Network. This was a new initiative. I forget exactly when it was, but we basically had 2 weeks. I think it was in February. We had 2 weeks. The directive came down from Dr. Patrick Conway to say, I want to build this learning and action network, and we need a registration form, and we need it now. So we were able to build this registration form, test it, deploy it within 2 weeks. But the other powerful tool that the Salesforce technology platform offers is the ability to pull data and do business intelligence and analytics reporting. The bottom screenshot just shows some basics of how we can report out on the data that we collect. So when a program team goes live with an online application and a day later they come to me or to the team and they say, can you produce a report for me that shows how many applications we've received to date from, you know, all the different states? We can do that. We can develop pie charts, bar charts, and it's real-time data. You just have to click a button that says refresh, and it pulls the data, and it's there. And that data can be emailed out to management. It can be on a recurring cycle every morning at 7 a.m. You can get this in your mailbox to see where we stand with the online applications. You can go to your leadership and say, wow, we got 300 online applications for this particular model. And we can break it down and drill down on those images and look at the individual applications and export it to Excel if you want. Or cut and paste it and put it into a PowerPoint presentation. It's real-time data. If we can collect it in a structured manner in Salesforce, we can report out on it. And this is a big win. This is what they like to see. This workflow is just an example of what I explained earlier of like the letters of intent on the application. So when a program team has an idea like whatever it may be, they may want to put a feeler out there and say, we want to do a letter of intent to see how many people in the US are actually interested in participating in our program. So we build a web form called a letter of intent. Someone goes to that form, fills it out, and then maybe 60 days later, the online application is built. They submit an online application. That application is received by the CMMI staff. We've built a custom application that allows the review panels to review and score that application, and the data is stored in Salesforce. There's a way for them to select those applications and then operate and maintain those awards and do reports and analytics. Hopefully that makes sense, but the whole trace, all that data from the letter of intent to the application to the review and scoring, the rubric that was used to score that application, to the selection of it, is all stored in Salesforce, and you can trace it back to the beginning. So you can drill down. You can drill down from the selected award or applicant to their initial letter of intent that was 90 days before, or a year before. So it's all there, and you can report on it. And that's a very powerful tool because it's all in one place, and you can trace back. The landscape, we have 25,000 high-volume portal licenses. We are leveraging this new technology in Salesforce called communities to build bi-directional collaboration tools. We've done over 100 projects to date, and we currently have 16 projects in queue. The demand to use, it's becoming the standard at the Innovation Center to use the Salesforce technology platform. And there's a lot more demand than there is supply right now. So we have a queue of 16 projects, and this doesn't include all the enhancements releases that we make every month. We've had over 1,000 change requests processed since 2011. And I think the main thing I want to drive to this slide is that if you're going to use the Salesforce technology platform, you need to have an IV&V contractor in place. It's not enough to just have requirements folks. It's not enough to just have a development team. You need to have a contractor or someone in place that can do testing, production testing, regression testing, you name it, before that system goes live. And then you also need a operations support center / help desk, because with all these applications that go live, there needs to be something in place to support the end user when they call up and they have a question, say, I can't log in, or I'm having trouble submitting this application, or I just don't get it. So those are two very important points that I want to make here, is that as things are becoming more and more popular at the Innovation Center, we found that we really need IV&V, and we need an operations support center, which we've had in place for several years now. The next slide, it deals with the ATO and FedRAMP, and I think, Mike, you're going to talk about that a little bit, right?
So before I jump over to security, which is always the elephant in the room, I did want to emphasize the other value of Salesforce is these modulars that you're building out are truly reusable for the next application that needs it. So over time, as we've sort of built out a library of modulars for use in the Innovation Center, we can actually improve that 6 to 8 week deadline if they can be reused and the program doesn't want a lot of changes. And that's pretty powerful because it truly is reusable code, real time, that can sort of really accelerate the need of the business. The one thing we talked about a little earlier, what you would use a cloud solution for, what you may not use it for, you have to understand the security of a cloud solution. You need to weigh that in, especially these days. And a lot of you probably have heard of FedRAMP. Can I see a set of hands that have heard of FedRAMP? So FedRAMP certified does not mean that you are certified and you are secure. And so what it means is it's got a certification and they've tested a set of controls. We've done an analysis and there's about 129 controls that FedRAMP certification does not test or provide that CMS requires. So we're going through that process of doing that analysis, and we're working with the Office of Enterprise Information as well to say, how do we want to address these controls so we can get an actual official CMS ATO authority to operate, knowing that there are gaps between FedRAMP certification and what at least our government agency requires, and my thought would be most government agencies require. So we've gone to the TRB, we've done consults, we've actually done a pre-security compliance assessment test just to see if the controls that they are saying are certified are actually working and are in place. So we're trying to make sure that the gaps that we don't believe are there aren't really there. So it's important to understand that when you're picking a solution such as Salesforce, what is the security aspect? It can't just be FedRAMP, and you're going to have to address a considerable amount of controls through either your contractor who's developing and supporting FedRAMP for yourself, your own staff, and or other entities. And an example of that is, there's controls to say, the server logs have to be monitored on some frequency. Well, a cloud solution doesn't do that for you. So the cloud solution, such as Salesforce, may say, we'll provide you those logs on this frequency, but we're not going to monitor them for you. You have to have those processes set up and in place. Other things are if there's, intrusion detection logs, who's monitoring those? A lot of things that people have to do with the reports or the things that come out of the system. So it's not a complete solution, and you really do have to figure out who or whom are going to sort of handle those controls outside of what the cloud provider provides. So again here, FedRAMP certification does not cover all security controls. And at CMS, it actually, to remind everybody, doesn't cover 129 of those controls. Sort of before we go to questions and closing remarks and what Elias sort of said, this tool has just been incredible for CMMI. We're basically an innovation center, and we're having to do a lot of what you may call research and development type like work, and that type of work adjusts quite frequently. You learn a little bit in 3 months, 4 months, 5 months, and then you want to make adjustments, and then you learn a little bit more, and then you want to make adjustments. Salesforce actually gives us that ability to make those rapid adjustments and be able to support sort of these new models and payment delivery tests more efficiently.
Okay, we have some questions.
Well, it looks like we ran out of time.
Yeah.
Thank you, everyone.
What kind of applications do you do? And why don't you go ahead with the next one? How many direct integrations do you do?
So, you mean what type?
Step to the mic, please.
Yeah, what kind of applications you do? Well, I think I had a slide earlier. We do letters of intent, we do online applications, we do applications for review and scoring of applications. I don't know if some of that makes sense to you unless you really see it, but a lot of applications are web-based forms, but there's also tools that we build on the back end. For example, our IVMV contractor has built a custom application on the back end of Salesforce to be able to track defects and bugs that they find during IVMV testing. All of our change requests that come from the program teams are logged and tracked in a custom application that we've built for internal staff to document those change requests and follow them through the process. Integrations, we haven't done any integrations yet.
I can speak a little bit to that. The other type of applications we have done, just to let folks know, is we set up the monitoring and reporting application for all the Healthcare Innovation Awards. So all the sort of awardees of Healthcare Innovations, they have to go into this tool, populate information, provide updates to their milestones. So we've built applications like that, and we're basically replicating applications like that for other program areas or models for their stakeholders to report progress and other items that are required per the agreement or the contract. And again, that's a fairly easy thing to do. Direct integrations, I'm assuming that you mean outside of the platform itself. And like I said, we are in the process of working on integrating with the EIDM and Enterprise Portal with OTS and the TRB recommendations. We believe we have a solution, and we're working that solution out with Salesforce, but we haven't actually done that integration to date.
Is this a direct CMS relationship with Salesforce, or is there another contractor in the mix?
There is another contractor in the mix, which is our Salesforce development contractor that has to help work with Salesforce to make this happen, but we are pushing Salesforce changes from CMS to Salesforce ourselves.
Any limitation on the type of applications you can build? Can you do high volume quality measures calculations?
The answer to that is yes. We have limited ourselves to that until we actually get an ATO. We did not want to violate any CMS security policies, so we were leery of trying to get PII or sensitive data in there until we were ensured we had an authority to operate, and the CISO felt that all the controls were in place for sort of this new technology platform. But we really, the tool provides functionality that can support an extremely large amount of capabilities, and it's very scalable. Salesforce definitely has their cloud facilities scattered around the country, and we've never had any sort of performance issues.
Were other tools evaluated before selecting Salesforce? Why was Salesforce chosen over other tools?
Yeah, well, it was in place by the time I took over in the CMMI Innovation Center. What we did is we competed a contract out on the street, and we said, please provide a task to do rapid application development, such as Salesforce and some other tools. Please propose back what you want to use. And so in the offer that we provided the award to, they chose to use Salesforce technology to provide the solution. So ideally, we didn't choose it. It was the choice of the contractor who bid it back and successfully won the work.
Oftentimes, the long pole in the tent is the process, CMI maturity levels, and our XLC. How were you able to get around this, and can contractors take advantage of this?
You can take that one.
Well, we are.
That's called the handoff.
Well, we haven't gotten around anything. We're not trying to get around anything. I think right now we're going through our ATO process, our SCA, and that addresses. During that process, we're addressing the XLC requirements. So, but let me think on that a little better, and then I'll post a response.
Okay. How big is the staff on applications?
So and I don't know the numbers. So there's one Fed person, and then we have a team of, I'd say, 8 business analysts, probably a dozen developers, an IV&V team of 8. It's big. We have a lot of people that are, not to mention the PMs that are part of the model teams that help facilitate stuff. So if you do the math, I don't know, we've got probably about 30 people, 30 FTEs working on this from a contractor standpoint. Don't quote me on it, but a lot of people.
What's the average life of an application?
It can go anywhere from 60 days to, since 2011, 4 years now.
What's the method used to educate other areas of CMS on your technology? The benefits seem to be clear from your presentation.
Like, this is an example, I think. I've been sort of giving we give a lot of presentations now. CMS, there's a lot of, CMS is catching wind of the Salesforce technology platform and the things that we're doing at the Innovation Center. So I think since January of this year, I've given 12 different presentations throughout CMS on the stuff that we've done.
Who has access to the apps created, public-facing or internal?
Both public and internal.
What are some challenges with using Salesforce in a CMS environment?
You want to take
Yeah,
that? Or?
so I think one of the challenges is actually systems integration back into CMS. Again, with the enterprise services, how is that going to work? How do we set that up, and how do we get the Salesforce cloud provider to agree on whatever connections we may need? And that's been a hefty challenge. And also, again, security, making sure that it's secured, it's meeting all the controls, and you feel comfortable for what you're doing or inputting into the system. I think, another challenge is that when we sort of report out to people what we're actually spending to do this work, they don't believe us because it's fairly low. So those have been the sort of high 3 challenges, I would say. We had some initial challenges from the program model teams, from the actual business, questioning, the use of it. But they've sort of seen the value, and they've come around, and like Ilya said, we can't actually keep up with the customer.
Yeah. What kind of volume does an app have?
So that's a great question. So remember that screenshot I showed you guys about the screenshots of different applications that we've built, and one was that Healthcare Planning Action Network. So that was a soft launch on a Friday afternoon at 3 in the afternoon, and by the end of the day, there were 1,400 registrations that came in, and since then, I think we've logged up to 4,000 registrations. So. But, another typical online application could be we've gotten 300 applications or 50 applications. So the highest I've seen is 4,000. When do you anticipate the ATO?
When do you anticipate the ATO to be completed?
So the last schedule that we were running on, we were anticipating no later than December of this year. I think we're still on schedule for that, but it all depends on what the SCA initial test, which we just concluded in July, finds, and making sure we get the other controls in place and written up. We are shooting for that, and primarily to that last question, because we would love to start inputting PII and sensitive information in Salesforce. And that's the only thing that's sort of holding us back right now. And so once we're able to do that, we'll have the flexibility to support much more business functions than we can do today.
Okay, and then the last one here, the last one. Well, there's another one coming in, but you're not going to have time for it.
No,
Once ATO is received, will contracts be able to start utilizing Salesforce for development as well?
Yeah.
Let me answer
Go ahead. You go ahead, Mike.
And you've answered 16 already.
Is this the highest number of questions any presentation?
So far, you have the record so far.
So this is a really, really good question. Salesforce, typically, when you buy the licenses, you get a certain set of instances, a certain set of platforms. And we've chosen to say, we have a single developer that can develop in that arena. We've had other developers come in and say, well, why can't we develop it in there? And we've sort of said, well, we don't want any other developers sort of moving around in our development, validation, or production instances. And so you really have to sort of, if you're going to have multiple developers trying to use instances of Salesforce, you have to sort of work that out, the logistics, probably get MOUs in place. Our theory is really trying to get Salesforce with some additional licenses to set up parallel instances to let those other developers come in and work. Now I know OEI and OTS, they're working on enterprise SharePoint procurement for the agency, and they're trying to figure out these very questions of, well, how do we make that accessible to the multiple developers? What I would say for those of you out there, the importance of if you want to come in and you want to bid on CMMI or CMS work, and you think you can leverage Salesforce, it's a good solution to put in your technical proposal, and you probably want to procure your own Salesforce instances and licenses. They're not expensive, and that way you have your own sort of development platform in a box to be able to service the proposal and the needs.
Okay. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thanks. Good job, man.
Just so you know, I have asked all the speakers to document the answers to all the questions, and they'll be doing that offline over the next day or two, and then we'll post all this information. So if you have a question and it didn't get answered, or you didn't get around to posting your question, or you were having trouble typing, which it looked like somebody was a minute ago, if you're having trouble, get a PC instead of an iPad. That's what I recommend. But anyway, ask your question. We'll do our best to get the speakers answer all the questions, and this will all be posted. All the presentations as well will be posted, and you'll get a notice of where to find those. They'll be on a think tank site that you can get to, whether you're internal or external. Our next presentation is John Booth on AWS.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is John Booth. I'm the director of the Web and New Media Group in the Office of Communications here at CMS.
Okay, so your presentation will be there.
Okay.
The questions will be coming in here.
Okay.
If you want a louder mark, that was
Okay.
working for you. And
Yep.
there's the advanced slide
Okay.
thing.
Great. So a little bit on what we'll run through. We'll talk about some new capabilities that CMS has to run systems in Amazon Web Services. We'll talk about the actual features that we have available in Amazon. I'm going to run through a couple of case studies of what we've actually deployed out there, and the initial use of AWS was by OC, but it's available as an agency resource now. And then we'll talk a little bit about how new programs or applications that are out there being built or existing now could leverage the AWS platform.
Is it working?
No.
One moment, please.
There we go. So as I mentioned, we have there's a task order available now. This is through the VDC contract, which is where CMS does all of its web hosting. This was just recently awarded. It was awarded to GDIT and Aquilent. This followed up to, so we basically initially stood up a task order about 1.5 years ago. And the problem, that one wasn't really structured to grow for agency use. So we've redone that, and really now it's a vehicle that, again, new projects can come in and use. As I mentioned, it is Amazon Web Services. That's the cloud computing provider. And it allows the components to procure cloud computing, both capacity and the services around that environment. So our needs were really driven by, probably most of you have seen this or heard of this, NIST has 5 characteristics that make a true cloud computing environment. And those have been a challenge for us in the past, particularly the idea of on-demand self-service and of sort of measured service that you're paying for what you use for is not something that we've done in our traditional computing model. So that was new. So as we move forward with the task order, we made sure that it aligned and incorporated all of those. AWS has many services. I think they've got something like 50. There are 2 sets of services available for CMS to use. One is the set of services that Amazon has taken through the FedRAMP process, and you can find those on AWS, and you can find them on the FedRAMP website. It's all the core services you need. In addition to that, CMS has audited several services that have not yet been through the FedRAMP process, and so there's more available. It's not the entire universe of AWS services, but it's more than just that you will see on that site. And I'll talk at the end. We've got a resource box set up. If people are interested in that full list, we can provide that to everyone upon request. So the 3 systems that I'm going to talk about that drove our need to use Amazon Web Services were 3 tools that we built for healthcare.gov, and we built these in the fall of 2013 as we were involved in some of the efforts to bring the site up and get people through the website. The one on the bottom I'll start with. So window shopping is also called anonymous shopping. It's the tool that lets consumers look at plans and prices without needing an account and without needing to have gone through the whole application. And so that tool didn't exist at launch. And so there was a lot of stress on the system from people creating accounts or doing an application that actually just wanted to see prices. And so we built that system to offload a lot of compute resources that were being applied to the application but didn't need to be. The second at the top is the streamlined application. So we wanted to build a way for people that had simple households, didn't have complex family scenarios, to get through the application more rapidly and not have to go through as many screens. Again, the quicker we could get people through the system, completed their application and back out of the system, the more people we could get through. And then the last is the scalable login system, which is a new identity management system that we wrote for the healthcare.gov consumer use case. Prior to that, we had been using the EIDM system, which also serves sort of the professional community here at CMS, and so we wanted to decouple those and have a system that was sort of more lightweight. So all 3 of those systems were actually built with the idea of being cloud native. They were built for and deployed in the Amazon Web Services data center from day one. And what they did is they did enable us to have a successful open enrollment. All 3 were deployed by the time that the last open enrollment that we just got through ended. So the 3 of them have been successes. We did offload a lot of the traffic from the other parts of healthcare.gov, so we took stress off of those systems, and we also took stress off of those data centers that are housing those systems. We diverted that to Amazon. We maintained the system uptime at our desired goals. We had very high uptimes, and we were able to do some of the scaling that Amazon supports. And again, the benefits of that are that we paid for the resources we were using at the time. And so window shopping probably ran on about 6 times the hardware it runs on today. We only paid for those extra servers for the exact hours that we were using them, and then we don't pay for them otherwise. And out of all of this, we've been really sort of evolving our use of AWS. As I mentioned, with the new contract vehicle, we want it to be an enterprise resource. And so what we've set up in this in the Amazon data center is a whole set of shared services that CMS applications need to run. So we have security monitoring, we have LDAP authentication, all those sorts of things you would expect to see in any CMS data center if you're bringing a system in. The benefits of cloud computing for us, really, they come down to 3 high-level categories, and there's a lot of detail underneath of these. Cost flexibility, I've talked about that. In one of our more traditional data centers, what we do is we buy for peak capacity, and we pay for that the whole time, whether we're using it or not. So the cloud gives us the ability to handle spikes. My team, we work on both healthcare.gov, which has enormous traffic spikes associated with open enrollment, and Medicare.gov, which is a very similar traffic pattern, that we have Medicare open enrollment in the fall, huge traffic spikes, a lower traffic volume the rest of the year. Business agility, as I mentioned, we were able to stand up multiple systems. We were able to stand up development environments very quickly. And so we've got an agility there that we haven't had with the ability to provision and deprovision environments quickly. I believe the SLAs in the new contract that we have are something like 48 hours for the turnaround of new computing resources, which is faster than we've ever been able to do. And then the third is really, as I've mentioned, to reduce complexity through standardization. What we want to do in the CMS AWS environment is to have that set of shared services available so that as applications come in, they can inherit all of that work, they can leverage that work without needing to build that from scratch for every project that comes in. For us, I'll talk a little bit about our operating model, having done work in a traditional data center and now in the cloud. In the traditional data center, where resources are scarce and provisioning time is large, what we've tended to see is that we have a fixed set of resources, and so we prioritize production stability and production capacity. We do that as a result of what I call starving development resources. The developers have a very few set of resources to do their development, to do their testing, till we get the code up into production. And what we've seen in AWS, now that we've moved over, is actually the opposite, that we have lots and lots of resources provisioned for the developers. And it enables developers that are using agile development methodologies to spin up an environment to build a prototype or test a new feature and then turn that off when they're done with it, which has been really empowering to those teams. Similarly, we have a pretty solid testing and integration environment. And when we need to do production readiness testing, we can actually make the production environment, we can make the integration environment the size of production so that we're running tests in literally the same environment that we'll see in production. Again, that's something that's been a challenge. And then we spin up production resources. The reason the triangles are different sizes is because of cost savings that we've seen, again, in the cloud model, and do cost efficiencies. We actually have more infrastructure than we've had in a traditional data center environment. So what are the things that you sort of get out of the AWS environment? We've got 5 boxes up here. The words are hard to read, but they don't matter too much. At the bottom, we've got the very basic features that make clouds, VMs and networks and those sorts of things. Above that, we have the infrastructure as a service platform. We have the platform as a service platform. And then we've got security running down the side. So in the contract vehicle that I'm describing, what application owners worry about is that green box at the top, the application tier. So AWS provides the basic cloud of the infrastructure as a service. The GDIT and Aquilent teams provide the platform services and the security, and then applications come in and teams come in and plug their application into those environments. And the way we're evolving our platform as a service is as applications come in, we define the tech stacks that they need. And we're basically looking to build what we're calling certified environment templates. And so we offer not only hardened operating system images that have the necessary agents installed and those sorts of things, but a set of application services on top of there, or middleware. So you'll see here in the environment today, we've got some stuff that's running Windows. So we've got IIS and SQL Server. We've got some applications running Node with various database backends. We're in the process of some J2EE applications migrating in, and so we will have a J2EE version of this stack. What we're trying to do here, again, this gets to the standardization I mentioned. What we're trying to do is to build a known set of application stacks that we support. If an application comes in and they have something new, that can be supported, but they're going to need to work with the GDIT and Aquilent teams and allocate some resources to build out that hardened application stack. And then governance and evolution. So the way we are managing the environment, again, this is a VDC contract, so the contract is held by OTS. We have a governance board. It includes representation from OTS, OC, the security office, and then we've also involved the TRB. We've been briefing the TRB regularly on our AWS activities and the cloud contractor. A business team inside a CMS that has a need to use cloud computing would bring the requirements to the table. We have a intro questionnaire that I'll show you guys on the next slide, and then we have a more detailed questionnaire that we ask teams to fill out. That allows the governance team and the contractors to come back with a ROM estimate for what the costs would be, and then we can sort of get the contract pieces moving. I think, you know, an important part of this is that I think there are a lot of CMS systems that exist today, and there are a lot of new CMS systems that would benefit greatly from being in a cloud environment. Conversely, I think there are some that are not a good fit. And so one of the things this process is designed to figure out is an application a good fit for a cloud computing environment or not. I would say, as opposed to the more traditional VDCs, there's sort of a black box where application owners probably have to worry a little bit less about how things are configured and network interfaces and all those sorts of things. In AWS, because you're sort of closer to the systems, there's more of a need to have teams that are able to support that. And so this is the initial questionnaire that I mentioned. So if somebody expresses interest in moving to AWS, we would send them a copy of this questionnaire and ask them to complete it. And here's the resource I mentioned earlier. It's AWS_support@cms.hhs.gov. That goes to the cloud governance team I mentioned. So that's your first place to start asking questions. Again, we would review this initial questionnaire, make some determinations of the appropriateness of the system, and then move forward with the detailed questionnaire and the pricing out of the system. And so I think at this point we can stop for some questions.
How easy is it to move from one cloud service to another? Was that somebody from Google asked that?
That's a good question, and we might have this later as well. But I think, I heard a question earlier about Salesforce. One question might be why AWS. One of the reasons that we went with AWS as the cloud provider for now is that they have a FedRAMP accreditation from HHS. And that accreditation is actually for, if people are familiar with AWS, they operate different regions. We have a region called GovCloud, which is entirely government contractors or government systems. We actually run in AWS East and West, which are environments that have both commercial and government clients. We run on dedicated hypervisors in AWS. But one of the reasons that we did that is CMS's systems, the ones that I work on for sure, but a lot of the ones that the agency works on, have very, very big computing requirements. They might have really high traffic spikes. They might need to process a lot of data through them, and GovCloud is slightly resource constrained relative to East and West. So that was the reason we made that decision. I will say, I've personally never moved a system from one cloud to another. We are trying to sort of be as vendor neutral as we can in AWS and not tie our environment completely to AWS technology so that we couldn't move in the future. We are sort of exploring now, as I mentioned, the first systems that we built were built from day one in AWS, which was a luxury that we won't always have. And so we're sort of getting into the experience now of what they call lift and ship, of moving a system maybe from a more traditional data center or from another cloud data center into AWS, and we're getting some experience there.
And two other vendors asked the next Q question. How is CMS avoiding vendor lock-in and promoting competition, which you sort of addressed, is if AWS raises prices, how could CMS exit AWS without a lot of cost and effort?
Yeah, so I mean, I do think that's a good point. That's one that we're considering as we evolve the platform in there, is to make sure that we don't put ourselves in sort of a lock-in situation. I will say, you know, this is certainly not something that would necessarily be true forever, but one of the pros of AWS is that since they've launched every year, they have reduced prices. There's actually some growing competition in the cloud environment now, which is nice because everybody's sort of reducing their prices. And so we believe, you know, we can't predict the future, but we believe that for the same investment in a cloud computing data center as opposed to a traditional data center, you could either decrease your infrastructure costs year over year or have more infrastructure at the same cost, which is, again, that's kind of novel for us.
Number 4, what types of workloads are best suited for AWS?
So I think the questionnaire I brought up kind of alluded to some of that. We do think, you know, particularly systems that are external facing in nature, systems that are likely to have either ongoing high traffic volumes or spikes. In particular, spikes is an area where I think the cloud is very beneficial. As discrete from Salesforce, which is more of sort of a software as a service platform, AWS is really a place where you want to run an application that you've built and need a hosting environment for. So I think those sorts of custom applications that are built for CMS use are the things that are the best fit for Amazon.
Has CMS mitigated the 129 FedRAMP gaps for the Amazon cloud hosted apps?
We have. So we have an ATO. In addition to the FedRAMP ATO, CMS has an ATO for AWS, and that ATO is set up as a GSS, and what that means is when applications come in, they inherit all of the controls for the GSS. So an application moving into Amazon Web Services, the piece that they are responsible for is the security testing of their application in AWS and any vulnerabilities that might exist in their application. But the platform level controls are all taken care of at the contract level.
Since FedRAMP is missing security coverage, what is Amazon going to do to close the gap?
So that's where we get into, I would say, you know, the difference between AWS and CMS's AWS. So the GDIT and Aquilent teams, as the contractor, are responsible for running security around the CMS computing environment in AWS. And so they run a security operations center. The gold images that I mentioned have all of the sort of monitoring agents and security tools that you would see in any other CMS data center. And when we go through a ROM exercise and a team gets a pricing estimate for what it would cost to run their application in Amazon Web Services, those costs are sort of built into that estimate and built into the task orders that are awarded.
Given IG and GAO scrutiny of cloud contracts, how is CMS addressing the issues such as lack of contract monitoring, the lack of site auditing, and the issue of the CSP maintenance staff having access to government data?
I mean, I would say so far we've been able to address the requirements that have come in, you know, both from the security auditors and the other types of audits. I think since this is done under the VDC contract, the controls that are in place in any of the VDCs are in place in Amazon Web Services. There's a pretty good model around the cloud service provider and the access that they have to the systems, and then the individual application owners and the access that they have to their systems. So it's I think, again, very locked down from what you would see in sort of a default AWS configuration of just going out with a credit card and, you know, buying some VMs.
Has CMS looked at the cost projected for cloud usage as far as data, storage, and compute? I think you may have addressed that, but.
Yes, we have. And again, this is sort of on a project by project basis. again, just as sort of a rule of thumb from my perspective, what we've seen is that costs are maybe I'll say a little bit less than half than what they've been for us in a traditional data center. So we've seen significant cost savings. Again, storage is an interesting example because that's one of those things that in a traditional data center can be very constrained. And adding new storage is something that you maybe can't do immediately. In Amazon and in most other cloud service providers, that's something you can provision on the fly, or you can even dynamically provision as you need it. And so that's been an area we've seen some great success in.
How is CMS tracking compliance with federal standards for server builds and desktops with the non-FedRAMP AWS workspaces and Amazon provided AMIs?
Yeah, so what we have available, CMS produces a set of gold images, which are blessed by the cloud service provider, which are blessed by the security team here. So those things are audited and monitored before they go into production. So we don't allow a team that's using the CMS AWS environment just to sort of go out and find an AMI and stand it up and just run it. We base everything off of the CMS gold images that have gone through that process.
How is CMS tracking and allocating cloud use cost in the chargeback model?
So a couple of things I would say about that. One of the things that's built into the new contract that's just actually kicked off is we're going to be building a portal that the application owners can use to sort of see real-time data on what's happening with their application, what sort of resources they are using, what the costs are for those and those sorts of things. And so we've had some visibility into that, but we're looking to make that better. One other thing I will note, there's a bit of a disconnect between the federal contracting model and cloud computing, because in federal contracts you have to award a certain dollar amount. You can't just say, I'll pay what the bill is. And so part of that ROM process that we go through and the questionnaire that we go through is figuring out the maximum compute resources that a team would need, and then you basically have the ability to burst up to that. You don't have to be running that much, but you can burst up to that. And Amazon gives us controls we can put into place so that doesn't we don't see costs that were unanticipated on an application by application basis.
Why use AWS if other providers have offerings that AWS does not offer?
So I think this was a matter of we picked the best option for us at the time, and I don't think CMS has closed the door to other cloud computing providers. This is the vehicle that we're using at the moment to get this done, and again, that was based on the requirements of the systems that my team was tasked with building at that time.
Can contractors access CMS AWS environment for solutions?
I would say they can if they go through the the intake process that we've established with the governance team. We have worked with a couple of teams in the past that have wanted to basically set up sort of a sandbox or a proof of concept environment, and so I think that is an option if a team wants to explore AWS without maybe going all in and establishing a full environment from development up to production. That is something that we've done with teams so that they could sort of explore the environment. Test that out and verify that they wanted to go all in into that world.
And as a follow-up, would CMS contractors be able to leverage AWS FedRAMP FISMA moderate systems to house PHI as part of their moderate impact systems?
They would. So the GSS that we've established is at the FISMA moderate level, and so systems that are housed in AWS can house PII and PHI. Those are both allowed.
Is CMS looking to give the thumbs up ATO for FedRAMP FISMA moderate Microsoft Azure?
I would say there aren't immediate plans. I know there are teams that are looking at that. So as I've said before, I don't think the door would be closed to that. Again, at the moment, what we have is an AWS compute environment.
I think we got it. Thank you very much, John.
Thank you.
Miraculously, we are right on time. Thank you very much to our speakers. I know George is going to say something to wrap up. I'm going to bring you to one more think tank screen and we'll appreciate your just your feedback. Any thoughts of the day? This is the first annual, so please give us any additional feedback you have on what we could do better, what you liked, what you didn't like. Is it too hot? Is it too cold? Did you like the coffee? Anything at all, go ahead and pop it into there. We're looking for at least 25 for a group this size. George.
Thank you. So at the very beginning, I said I'd be very brief, actually. I said that there was a lot of things happening in these walls, and I think hopefully today you've been able to see that on how much we're doing and how much we're trying to take advantage and embracing new technologies and approaches. I want to thank all the speakers. I want to thank you for being here, the vendors for being out there, for being very kind, and I hope to see you guys next year as well. Again, thanks.
Thank you.